Well, this big building behind me was built as British Army Barracks. The British pulled out of here in 1820 and it lay more or less derelict until 1859, which is just a couple of years after the famine. And the position in Ireland after the famine was absolutely dreadful. And there were quite a lot of children on the loose, engaged in petty crime and thieving and so on. And they brought in a Reformatory Act in 1859, whereby children who misbehaved or petty criminals and so on would be sent to these reformatories to be reformed. And this place became the first of these reformatories. And it was more or less subcontracted by the government to a religious order, the Oblate Fathers. And they moved in here in 1859, and they built a new building at the back, which is where all the boys were housed, and there were around 300 boys at any particular point in time. They built the church up here behind me, and the buildings that I'm looking at now were originally stables and workshops for the army, and they were upgraded to classrooms and workshops. It was the first of the reformatories to open, and very interestingly, it was one of the first to close. That it closed in 1941 by order of the government because of the conditions, and all the boys were transferred to another reformatory in Dangan. Right, we're standing now in front of a building that the Oblates built shortly after they came here, and that is the dormitory and the kitchens and the refectory where they ate, and that's the building behind me here. On that upper floor, over 300 boys slept on that upper floor up there, and down below were the kitchens and the refectory where they ate. Even today, as I stand here, you can feel the chill because we're literally on the top of a mountain here. So it was very, very tough in those days. And an example of how harsh the whole thing was for them, I have here from the records some of the sentences that were applied. A chap, Lawrence Neville, 12 years of age, he was charged with the illegal possession of gooseberries, and he got 2 weeks in prison and 2 years up here in Glencree. It's almost unbelievable in our terms. Another one here is a youngster, 12 years of age, Charles Hudson, and he is charged with stealing a muff, a hand muff that you keep your hands warm on. And he got a month hard labour in Kilmainham and 5 years up here in Glencree. It's almost beyond our comprehension, and I'll just pick out one more. As you can see, there's loads of them here, but I'll just pick out another one. And here we have a John McIntosh, aged 12, and he stole a sheet for which he got 14 days in prison and 5 years in the reformatory. And so it goes on and on. It's almost unbelievable. This is the dormitory up here on the top floor up here, and there were 300 beds along that top floor there, and that's where the boys slept under supervision, the young lad making his bed there. Underneath on this floor here were the refectory, which is where they sat down to eat, and the kitchens here. So this was a hive of activity. The brothers themselves lived in the old barracks across the way. Here's a picture. You can see this building peeking out there at the back there, and there is the armory where the cafe is today. Now, part of the daily routine is the boys were up at 6 o'clock every morning and straight down here to this area here, which was open to the elements there at the front. There was a light lean-to roof on the back, but there was a long trough there, stone trough, and that's where they washed every morning, hail, rain or snow, and then back up and into the church for Mass every morning. And then the day was a combination of work in the fields, and they reclaimed most of the fields around here, time in the workshop where they were taught crafts like tailoring or shoemaking, repairs, carpentry and so on, and then back up again to pray in the evening again, and then back into the dormitories at the back, which were tough enough. Right, we're in St. Kevin's Church in Glencree, and the Oblates moved into Glencree in 1859, and a church would have been one of their top priorities. So within 4 years of moving in, they had this church built. And every morning, for over 90 years, hundreds of boys came in here to Mass. And in certain light, if you look at the tiles on the floor, you can see the waves in the tiles from the boots of the children coming in and out. So every morning and last thing at night, they were all trooped in here, and then they went out and worked and learned whatever craft they were taught. Something that often occurs to me is that take a youngster of 8 years of age, a young lad sent from the city up here, and he would spend, let's say, 5 years up here for what we would now regard as a petty crime. But when that 5 years was up, that was it. They were just taken out of here and dropped off, and there was nothing there to look after them, to see in what way they could be helped. And these people, a lot of them had very, very sad lives afterward. Right, we're here in the churchyard beside the Reformatory Church, and behind me are the graves of Oblate brothers who died here. And here, very recently erected, is the burial place of an indeterminate number of boys. Now, it was inevitable in the 1800s and early 1900s that people died young, and from all kinds of reasons, not just the harshness of the place, but for many reasons. But what has been missing here is that although it was known that there were boys buried here, their presence was not acknowledged. So finally, about a year ago, a group of people got together, and with the agreement of everybody concerned, this plot was finished here, which acknowledges the presence of the boys in this place. Their death and their resting place is now acknowledged here.